And so you want to start off with your Illustrator open so that you can start doing your work. And here I'm just going to import. So once you have your sketch ready, so you're going to work on a sketch on the side, try to make it as clean as possible. If you do have some Photoshop experience, you can also clean it up in Photoshop, but then that's not super necessary if your sketch has like proper lines and very good outlines. So we're going to be using the image tracing option for creating a logo. There's so many other ways you can like single-handedly draw it. You can draw over a sketch. So we're just doing the simplest way possible, and this requires that you have a good sketch available. So the first thing you're going to do is import your sketch into Illustrator. I'm going to just create a new file. So I'm going to create new. I'm going to use the default letter, which is in portrait mode, and then do create. And so I have my fresh page available. And then now I'm going to import my image. So I just sketched this for this specific project. And I'm going to click on place and identify my logo. So this is a logo that I just created to work on this project. It says IC Imaging Center. Um, I was going to add some more extra details to it, but this is like as simple as I could make it. And if you want to resize your logo once you put it in, as you can see, this one is much bigger than the available space that I have. You are going to go to this move tool, which is here at the corner, and then go to the corner there, click on shift so that you don't warp your image, and then resize it, sorry, and then drag it right onto there. So I think it looks good right now. We only care about this black space. You shouldn't care much about the white space because we just want this part. So as you can see right now, this was sketched with a pencil and it has some really jagged edges, and we want to make it into something really solid that we can actually print on a t-shirt. So I also just want to show you where the layers section is. It's over here in the corner. This way you can see which layer you're working on and what you have available. And then the properties panel for everything else. So yeah, once you have this here, you can click on image trace so that you can get started on image tracing your logos so that you can create the entire design. So we're just going to click on default for now, and it'll give you this message if your file is pretty large because it might take some time, but it probably won't take that long. So you click OK. And then now we want the image trace window to pop up. So we're going to click on window, and then we're going to go to image trace so that we have these options so that we can like change them up and fix our logo. So I'm going to walk through the different options that we have, and you can like play around with them depending on what you have. I'm going to do what kind of works for the image that I have, but then if you have like a different type of sketch, you might need to work differently. So firstly, we are not working with any color for the logo. We're just doing black and white. Um, so the logo is going to be black or it's going to be white, but Paper City mentions that they prefer it to be black. It's better to print that way. So please design with like that in mind. No color at all, no grayscale, just black. So here we're going to ignore most of the presets that we have available, which are specifically for like colors and things like that. So for preset, I'm going to select black and white logo. Um, Nothing changes much because it's already like a black and white image. And then currently for the view, it shows me like the tracing result, which is the result after I do the image trace. But if you want, you can switch back to the view of the source image so that you just see like what it looks like before and then kind of what it's looking like now so that you get a sense of how it's looking and if you're liking it. So the first thing we have here is threshold. You can push threshold on the scale depending on what you want, but the more you push it to the right, the more black you have, and the more you push it to the left, the more white you have. So you definitely don't want it all the way to the left because you get like all white, and all the way to the right because you get all black. But depending on the type of sketch that you have, you might want it somewhere in the middle or more to the left, depending on what it looks like. So you can see that as I'm shifting it, things are changing, and I'm kind of just liking it here in the middle because it's creating a good balance. So depending on what you have, you might want to do a higher or lower value. The next is paths. Here in the advanced section, sometimes you might not need to do the advanced stuff if you think that it already looks good. But if it doesn't, you might want to do this. So for paths, if you put it all the way here to the bottom, it's just going to like try to create a path on your sketch, like the smoothest path that it can find. But then if you put it all the way to the edge, it's going to create like these very jagged lines. Like for every little bump that you have, it's going to assume that it wants you to like super define that. So if this is a look that you're going for, then go with it. But then I'm going to keep mine somewhere in the middle again, so that things are not too defined. And you might want to zoom in. I'm zooming in with like 2 fingers so that you kind of see what it looks like on a more granular level. So I'll keep mine somewhere here in the middle. And then next is corners. So if you have like an image that has geometric shapes like mine, and I have some corners here that are rounded, I don't want them to be like super sharp. I'm going to want to keep my corners like on the low side, because if you put it here all the way to high, it's going to like give you a boxy kind of feel. But again, if you're going for like a boxy look, then that would be pretty good for you. So once again, I'll keep mine on the lower side because I have curves on my little camera. In case you hadn't noticed, it's like a camera with an I and a C. And next is noise. So my lines are pretty crisp, so I can't do much with this here. But then if you have like some little dots on your sketch and you want to remove those, then you need to set the noise to be higher. But then if you want like a lot of noise on your image, then you want to set it to be lower. And then here for the method, we're going to keep it on the abutting, which is the first one, because that way we can do the ignore white. So ignore white just allows Illustrator to take this and just like acknowledge the black area, ignore the white area. Because we're going to print it onto a t-shirt, we just want like the black outline and you want to ignore the white out, like the white. You don't want to take that as something that you're working with. So this is very important to set it to ignore white so that you can like work with it better. And then I'm going to have fills and strokes so that I can just have more functionality with my work. And then with, if I had more time, I would like move things around, edit it much better so that it looks a lot better before I start doing the work. But then depending on how much work you want to do here or that you want to do later, you can like dedicate more time to this or dedicate more time to actually using the tools. And then after you're done, you're just going to exit out of here, and then it has your presets like already saved. And if you wanted, you could once again try to see what it looked like before and what it looks like now, so you can just see if this is what you're going for. So you do that again in the view. So this was the source image and this is the tracing results. So it kind of accomplished what we hoped it would accomplish. Things look pretty solid and ready to move on to the next step. So once you're done with this part, you're going to want to click on Object and then click on Expand so that this way you can actually start editing it. Because right now it's still like this one solid thing, but then anyway. And now we're going to click on Object and then we'll click on Expand, and then it will select Objects and Fill so that you can make more edits to your logo. And once you click on OK, now everything is sort of going to have these paths that are associated with it, and then you'll be able to make a lot more edits with it. If you are using some of these tools that we have here, you can like sort of cut this out or like make these edges more rounded or everything along those lines. So Sandra is now going to walk us through the different tools that you can use here in your toolbar, and then you can like make more edits or cut things out the way that you want them to, and also add some text.
All right, so I'm going to basically just go over some of the basic tools of Illustrator. If you want to build your design just straight from Illustrator. What Rati was showing is a great way to transfer like a drawing, because Illustrator is not as designed for like drawing something out. But if you want to just like manipulate the shapes right from the software, I'm gonna go over that. So, okay, I'm gonna share my Illustrator screen. And as you can see, I've already been doing some little experiments. So, okay, oh, also a quick note about making images for screen printing. It's pretty simple because we're just doing black and white and you don't have to invert it or flip it or anything, unlike another screen printing, I'm sorry, not screen printing, other printmaking methods. But you do want to keep in mind the intricacy of your lines and try to keep things a little like wider and thicker. That does make it easier for them to print. So let me see, his name is partially covering it. One of the main things that I've been using is your shape tool over here. I've got an ellipse selected, let me see, and a black fill. So you can just draw your circle. I don't have shift held down, as you can see, so I can just drag it into an ellipse, or if you want it to be an exact circle, it'll measure it for you. The way I made this little S down here is actually by grabbing the curvature tool and just kind of pushing it around and manipulating myself a new shape. So this tool can do two things. You can grab existing little nodes, or you can create a new one and drag it. So you just want to keep in mind like where your center is and where you're taking your little shape. Okay. So, all right, I've got that there. And to show you how I made this, okay, so if you want to make this kind of effect, it's a good way to work when you're just working with black and white, because that's all we have. That's the main way of distinguishing shapes. You want to go to your selection tool. Now you want to drag this over here. It's now overlapping with this rectangle that I've created before. And if you want to kind of have this shape be visible on this plane, I'm going to select both the S and hold down Shift, select this shape and the shape that's overlapping. You're going to go to your shape builder tool. You're going to go over to fill, make sure fill is empty, not black. All right, and then when you hover over, you're going to see these little gray outlines show up, and you click on it, oops, and it should just key out. So that's a good way of, if you want to create, say, a circle and then make it an O, key out the center, and that's just another way of kind of manipulating shapes. So let's see, a couple other things. Obviously, with your shape tools, there's also a polygon. You can choose if you want a triangle. Like it's all over here with no fill. You choose something with 3 sides. Sorry. One second, sorry, you guys. Okay. So you can drop your triangle there. Select a fill color. You can also do, if you want, instead of a fill, you can experiment with strokes and use overlay white. So if you want to make another triangle, let's give this one a white stroke. Bring it over here on top of this one. First, let's make it, hold down Shift and make it a little bit smaller with our selection tool. and you can fill up shapes that way. If you want to, let's say we want to change this shape down here, or actually I grouped that. Let me just create another one. Let's say we want to make another polygon. We want it to be a pentagon. But you want to add or add or subtract. You can do your little subtraction tool, and you can manipulate shapes that way. And let's see. Oh, and there's also a pen tool. That's the last one. This one, I honestly prefer starting with the shapes, but you can also just by clicking, build your shape. Just make sure you're kind of moving in the same direction. And then to click out of it, you just complete the shape. Yeah, oh, and then there's the paintbrush tool. This one I find is kind of, I don't know, it's a little more difficult because it's just a little more drawing based, and it's kind of just a stroke, but you can do some things with that as well. And no, I think I've probably covered everything that we could use for this design project. Once again, it's pretty simple because we're doing just black and white. We don't have to invert anything. And then one note about just images in general and resolution. Any image size is pretty much okay as long as it's 300 DPI, so that they have a high enough resolution. And when you're creating your image, you just want to think about like how large you want it to be on your t-shirt. So if you want, you can make like a little, kind of design up here, or kind of a larger thing, but that's just something you want to think about as you're creating the image. We're open to, I mean, honestly, pretty much anything y'all think of. Even if you think of like, if you have Smith College Imaging Center and a really good slogan that you want to try to include, that would be good. Just keep in mind what the resolution and what size that's going to look like when it's printed on the t-shirt. So I think now we'll probably just take some questions. I think I'll unshare for now, but I can reshare if you have an Illustrator question.